Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we're jumping into a beer from River North Brewery, and this is another variant of their classic Mr. Sandman Imperial Stout. They have a lot of different versions. I've had and reviewed 2, maybe 3 now. I have a few more that I haven't tried yet, lined up for reviews down the road, and they just have a ton of different styles. This is their big classic base Imperial Stout, and they like to do different things with it, all different sorts of combinations and flavor variants. Today's is called Triple Cinnamon, and it clocks in at 11% ABV. River North Brewery is based in Denver, Colorado. So let's talk about the cinnamon. Triple cinnamon, what does that mean? They add like triple the normal volume? No, it's 3 specific different varieties of cinnamon, and they tell you right here on the bottle. They have got Sri Lankan Ceylon, Vietnamese Cassia, and Indonesian Corinthia. So 3 different cinnamon varieties from 3 different cinnamon source countries. This is a 2021 release. In terms of bottle art, it's just a super clean design as always on River North Brewery's packaging. Nice clean design, but I absolutely love, obviously, Imperial Stouts, stouts in general, and cinnamon. Cinnamon in a stout works very well for me. That's how I take my coffee. Black, no cream, no sugar, with a nice little sprinkling of cinnamon mixed in. So I'm expecting this is kind of going to be a beer version of how I take my coffee. Nice, thick, very dark. I'm giving it a good bit of agitation here to let it have plenty of opportunity to form a head. It does not seem to be having a problem with that whatsoever. We'll cut right there. So I'm going to let this settle for a little bit. No problem. I was intentionally aggressive, but I'd rather give the beer a chance and have it, do this rather than not form a head at all and say that it didn't do well. So visually, this is absolutely pitch black as expected. I reviewed enough of these Mr. Sandmans to know that about them. And yeah, I was aggressive intentionally, and sure, it was quite thick, but when the carbonation did start to come up, very fine, very quick. So it did make this nice, thick, tight, creamy head of foam right on top. We're going to get right up over this for a sniff. Oh, wow, yeah. That cinnamon really is prominent. And this is actual cinnamon. 3 varieties of true natural cinnamon. There's no artificial cinnamon in this at all. It's not like a Red Hot. It's like actual cinnamon. Cinnamon like you'd put in, a pumpkin spice flavored something or on an apple pie. Proper actual cinnamon. It smells fantastic. It smells to me, it doesn't smell like old stale, like you buy cinnamon in the grocery store and a couple years later you're making something and it's, it still smells okay, but it's lost the pungency, has a little bit of staleness to it. This has real vibrancy and life to it. It smells like it's very freshly ground cinnamon that is in this beer, or possibly even whole bits of sticks aged on it. I'm not sure what the process, but I can tell you it's very pronounced. The cinnamon pops out loudly and clearly, and it smells extremely fresh. I absolutely love the aroma on this. In tandem with the cinnamon, you can absolutely smell that big roasty underpinning of this malt bill. This is a malt bill I know well. I've had a few different versions of this Mr. Sandman. I am not surprised. It smells absolutely fantastic. A lot of richness, a lot of roast, and just big pungency of cinnamon. There's a slight suggestion of sweetness that's probably coming off of the fact this is an 11% ABV Imperial, but it smells amazing. Had to settle down a little bit there, so we're gonna finish topping this beer off. Yeah, we'll get the whole bottle in there, no problem. So yeah, the head's, a little over an inch and a quarter maybe-ish tall. It's absolutely going to make a mess in my beard, but we're just going to deal with it because I want to jump right in. It looks great. It smells great. Let's do it. Oh, man. Oh, yeah. That is an absolutely incredible stout. Big and bold. Big roasty notes, big pungency of cinnamon, not a hint of sweetness. There's no lactose in sight. This really is like the beer version of how I take my coffee. If anything, just amplified. They clearly used plenty of cinnamon. It is not shy about it. It's very prevalent. And honestly, on this beer, that has such a big, intense roast to it. If you haven't had the River North Brewery's Mr. Sandman, any of their variants, know that up front. It is big and bold and intensely roasty. Tons of roast, tons of earthiness, a big kick of earthy, roasty bitters. It really comes through very, very clearly. This is a big, bold Imperial Stout formula. And then they paired with these 3 different varieties of cinnamon. And the cinnamon is equally as pungent. So what it does is just perfectly balance this beer out with the 2 stars of the show. The 3 cinnamon varieties I'm clustering as 1 star, and then all the various malts they put into the malt bill for the base beer as the other star. But it is equally balanced. It's absolutely delicious. This is a big in-your-face stout. Make no mistake about that. If you don't like those big, intense flavor profiles, maybe this isn't up your alley. But if you do, then you are in for an absolute treat, especially if you really like the more kind of earthy, in-your-face, bitter intensity on a classic Imperial. You're absolutely going to love this. And man, this is just so good. It is everything that I hoped it would be. This is one I got a few months ago, and I had been setting it aside for when the mood really struck me, and I am not disappointed. This is absolutely incredible beer. So I'm going to jump back in for a second sip. We're going to talk body. We're going to talk mouthfeel. Let everything re-intensify, and we'll talk about the finish. But absolutely, my first impression, it's incredible. Take 2. Body in this is kind of medium heavy. It's not as oppressively weighty as you might expect for 11%. I would say maybe high end of average-ish for the ABV range. The mouthfeel is quite resistant on this. For 11%, it actually has a lot more resistance to it texturally than maybe you would expect. So the body's not as heavy, but the mouthfeel is extremely resistant. And it gives a nice little balance between those kind of 2 sensory experiences you get, weight and texture-wise. Absolutely incredible. On second sip, re-intensification, it's everything I got on the first, and it just amplifies it. This is a thicker beer. It does stick around and coat the palate quite well. So it's just still, again, big, intense cinnamon pungency paired with big, intense, rich, earthy, roasty, and bitter malt. There's really no more subtlety to it than that. This isn't one that really gives me any char vibes. There's no smoky vibes. There's no coffee vibes. It's just big, intense, earthy, roasty, bitter from the malt bill, and just big, bold, pungent, true, fresh cinnamon popping right out of it. It is absolutely incredible. This, to me, is a home run in its execution and its relative simplicity. Just a perfectly well done Imperial Stout with one little tweak that they chose and put in the right amounts exactly right. I mean, this is how to make a no-nonsense, big, in-your-face, interesting stout for my money. I love it. So now let's talk about the finish. It is quite long. When I said it's big, bold, intense, roasty, earthy, and bitter, I mean it. The lingering roasty edge to this and earthiness and bitters is quite pronounced. It really does stick on the palate. It's got a thicker mouthfeel, so it really does coat very, very well, and just the pungency of those flavors really sticks. In particular, it lingers on the back of the palate. In tandem with that, you do still get a nice pungency of the cinnamon as well, but when we're talking the finish, it's easily 3/4 of the malt as the big impetus driver and maybe 1/4 cinnamon. The cinnamon is still there, it's still noticeable, but it's dominated on the end of the finish by the malt bill itself. And it's way longer than average, way longer than average. This one is a little bit drier on the end. It takes about 40-ish seconds by my experience here for it to really start to have a little bit of a drying effect on the back of the palate after each sip, but it is there. I would say it feels mostly wet and it feels very round until the finish starts to slowly dissipate over time. And when I say slowly, I mean slowly. This easily gets 2, 3, 4 minutes mileage out of each sip on the back end. It's still quite pungent. I don't know how long ago the last sip I had. Feels like at least 2 minutes. It's still very clear, haunting, lingering flavor. on the palate. It is absolutely incredible. I love this one. I'm going to take my time, sip on this, come up with my scores. When we come back, we'll get this beer ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this beer, we're going to get it ranked. This was River North Brewery's Mr. Sandman, the triple cinnamon variant, an Imperial Stout clocking at 11% ABV. River North is based in Denver, Colorado. So here we go. I've had quite a few beers in a row out of the last 5, 6, 7 reviews, it seems, that have done extremely well. One even got a perfect score, one of like 12 or 13 out of, I don't know, 7, 8, 900 beers I've reviewed to date. This was just another top tier beer. Honestly, it feels like the big volume of competition out in the beer space is making brewers tighten up their games. Like, it's really hard to get beers that are just meh these days, and we're all the better for it. So this one only had one category where it didn't get a perfect score. That category was the body. The body was fine. It was really just high end of average, what you might expect for 11%, but it wasn't top tier. Normally, you see a beer pouring that thick. It's a big Imperial Stout, 11% ABV. That's not low. You would expect it to be at least on high end, medium heavy, maybe even approaching heavy territory. This was really just high average, kind of middle of the road on the high end, bordering between medium heavy-ish. It wasn't light, but it wasn't as robust as I expected. So overall, the body did get a 6 out of 10. Every other category, it got a perfect score, 10 out of 10. That's aroma, taste, mouthfeel, finish, head and retention, appearance, balance, feeling/intangible, and example of style, which does bring the total score on River North Brewery's Mr. Sandman, the triple cinnamon version, to a 96 out of 100. Guys, this is just another top tier stout. I've had quite a few different variations on Mr. Sandman from River North. The beer itself is just a phenomenally well done Imperial Stout, and then the different twists and turns that they do on switching it up with different additives really make for a very unique beer drinking experience every time. This was absolutely my favorite variant to date. I thought this was just about a perfect beer for my money. Again, big, bold, in your face. If you like these big, bold, in your face, pungent Imperial Stouts, especially ones that have such a bold, roasty, earthy backbone to them from the roasted level of the malts that they really kick a lot of bitters in the forefront, then this is definitely up your alley. I would recommend it any day of the week. I wish I had ordered more of these. It was that good. Regardless, I would recommend this one to any big beer fan. Folks, that is today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just turn on your notifications by hitting that bell icon. It is right next to the subscribe button. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.